Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Podcasting Podcast. I have an awesome guest today. I'm excited to talk with her. Her name is Dr. Julie Marty-Pearson, and she is a dynamic podcaster, a speaker, a coach. She's so many things. She's a passionate storyteller, and she coaches women to be awesome podcast guests. And she helps women to launch and host their own show. She's also created the Women's Podcaster Party Network community. So I'm going to be asking her about that very shortly. But first off, welcome to the show, Julie. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to chat with you.
You're welcome. This is exciting. Anytime I can talk with podcasters and we get to just talk podcasting, it's always exciting for me because we all have different perspectives and different ways of looking at what we do. We're doing the same thing, but in different ways. So it just makes it really exciting. Yeah. So, but you wear a lot of different hats. So you are an advocate, speaker, a podcaster, a coach. So I want to know your story, your backstory. How did you get into this whole thing of podcasting, and also share what your podcast is? If you have more than one, share your podcast with us.
Okay. So yeah, I have 2 podcasts currently. I'm always coming up with new ideas. I think that's also the role of the podcaster. My podcasts are The Story of My Pet and Podcast Your Story. They have 2 very different purposes, but they're both a part of my story and how I've gotten here and what I do now. So I always like to say before COVID, I think we all talk in before COVID and after.
Right.
So for me, COVID was like a defining moment because my career changed. Before COVID, I spent 20 years working and teaching in higher education.
Wow.
I worked in colleges and universities all over California. I taught psychology and statistics, and I was also a staff and administrator at different schools. I did a lot of research and accreditation work. So that was kind of my life before. But to move up in higher ed, you have to move schools. So I had to commute. There were times I was commuting anywhere from 2 to 5 hours from home. Yes, several years of time where I lived away from home during the week and came home on the weekends.
Wow.
I don't necessarily recommend that life, but we do what we have to in our
You made it
careers.
work. Yeah.
Yes, but the 2 years prior to COVID, my body was starting to tell me, okay, we may need to reevaluate this situation. Living out of a suitcase is not great. But I'd worked my whole life for that career, so it was hard for me to kind of visualize something else. But of course, COVID hit, and I was actually off work at the time. I had had surgery about 6 months before, and so I didn't have a job. Schools were shut down, so it's not like I could apply for jobs. And so it was kind of that space for like, well, maybe this is the moment I make a change. And I have a doctorate in organizational psychology, and a part of that program was learning how to be a coach for like corporate people, executives, but we still went through how to be a coach, how to coach people. What does that look like? So I'd always wanted to be a coach in some way. And so that's kind of what I decided, well, let's try it. Let's see what happens. So I started my coaching business. At the time I was doing career coaching because that's what I knew. I could help people very easily, but I was not passionate about it at all. And through the process of starting my business, taking all the classes, getting all the coaches for myself, I took a podcasting class, and I really loved the idea of doing it. But with career coaching, I never really got any momentum. And again, it was because it wasn't exciting to me to get up every day and think, let's talk about resumes, right? So I decided to just kind of put that aside, jump into podcasting, see if I even like it. So I decided what's something I can talk about without any notes, and that's pets, animals. And I've always been an animal lover my whole life. I grew up with dogs. I've just always been drawn to animals. They're my people, I guess. Maybe it's because I can't talk back. I'm an introvert, so I really connect deeply with animals. And my own pets have helped me a lot through my life with health issues, mental health things, just regular life stuff. So
Right.
I got on Zoom with some friends and we talked about pets and I put out episodes. They weren't edited and people started listening. People started asking to be on. And now, 3.5 years later, the story of my pet is a top 5% podcast. It is still
Wow.
tiny, but it is mighty. And it's kind of now my passion project where I get to advocate and educate and really talk about something I love. And so that journey led me to leave career coaching behind and go
Wow.
full into podcasting.
Wow, just because you felt the passion for podcasting and
Yep,
you were from that you were willing to leave behind everything you had worked for and now move into something new. That transition happened because of your passion. So I always like to see like how
absolutely.
passion plays a huge role in podcasting because most of us don't jump into it because we think right away we're going to make a lot of money. We do it because we're passionate and then the money comes later, right? So I love that.
Right.
I love that. And then that said, so we're going to move into this idea of starting messy because I think many times people want to, creatives in particular, want to start a podcast, but feel like we have to get everything in order, get our ducks in a row, figure out like 50 different, episode ideas before we start, have all the right equipment, just basically overthinking. And so, how can we get out of that rut and how do we do what we call learn by starting messy? Some ideas for us.
Yeah, it was hard for me. I'm a Virgo, so starting messy is not in my DNA. And, I have two masters and a doctorate. I'm a good student. I'm good at doing things a certain way. So
Hmm.
podcasting kind of pushed me out of that comfort zone. And so when I say start messy, I say start where you are.
Mm.
So a lot of my coaching is really talking to women like, what are you doing? Like, oh, I go live here or I do this on YouTube. Okay, well, let's start there and
Okay.
build. Like,
Right.
where are you already at and build on what you've created.
Yeah.
But I also, with podcasting, I often talk to people about like why. You have to know your why before you start. You don't just start
Absolutely.
to start,
That's right.
right?
That's right.
So I always you want to start messy, but you want to know why you're starting and what
Exactly.
what it's for. But also when I say start messy, I say try it and see if you even like it. I had no idea if I would even like podcasting. It was a
Mhm.
brand new world. I'd never edited audio or video or did any of that sort of thing. And working in higher ed, we didn't use Zoom a lot. All of our meetings and things were in person. So just the whole online space was new to me. And what I realized was I need to get on and do it and put it out and see if anybody even resonates with it, wants to listen. People even want to listen to podcasts about pets, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I say the same thing when people ask me about guesting. It's like, well, before you put a lot of effort into it, why don't you try it and see if you like it? Is this how you want to spend your time?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. It's like, I love what you said, start where you are. And that sometimes looks messy, feels messy, feels
Yes.
uncertain because we don't know what we're doing really when we're first starting. So just starting with that and having someone like you, having a coach that can help us through that first couple of missteps, right? And we'll figure it out
Yeah.
as we go, you know?
And
That,
I also want to add to the start messy is you don't have to have all your ducks in a row. You don't
mhm,
have to have all the things. Like
mhm,
I am a coach who helps women who are like me, indie podcasters. We do it all ourselves or we have one or two people helping us, right?
right, right.
I want you to be able to test out if you even like the interview process, the editing process, the publishing. Like those
Mhm.
are all things you don't know until you do it.
Exactly.
And I also know that podcasting is a fast paced, changing platform, dynamic media, whatever you call it. So you don't want to learn all the things because trust me, next week it'll probably
It'll
change.
change. That is for sure. It will change. And so, like you said, trying out the different pieces of podcasting, there's so many different parts of it. Maybe we don't like the editing and we can hand that off to someone else. Maybe we don't like the showing up and doing the interviews and maybe we just do solo podcasts. So, like you said, just seeing what works. So
Yeah.
that, yeah.
And I think a big part of it is also being authentic to you.
Hmm.
I think a lot of us in business see someone else be doing well at something or being popular or successful, and we're like, oh, well, I want to be like them. But no, no,
Right.
no, you're you. You need. I tell people over and over again, if you're gonna podcast as a guest, as a host, or anything, you have to be you. You have to show
Yeah.
up as yourself because that's what people are gonna connect with.
Exactly. That's what they're looking for. And you are so right about the comparison trap. That is, it's something we battle with in every aspect of life. But when it comes to podcasting, it's there too. And we have to contend with the fact that other people are doing really well. And some podcasters are, they've got millions of downloads a year. So that's just what it is. And if we are just starting and we're trying to be at the place they are overnight, of course, it's not going to happen. It's not going to work that way. We have to work our way up to that point. But meanwhile, let's just enjoy the process and enjoy the
Yes.
art of podcasting and showing up, like you said, like we are, showing up as ourselves, not being someone else, but just being who we are, transparent and real. So that's all good. That's good. And then community, right? So we got to do this in
Yes.
community. Doing it on our own is, I think podcasting needs, we need community in this type of thing, this podcasting world,
Yep.
because it's really, really lonely otherwise. I mean, it's
Yeah.
hard because our voices, we kind of feel like our voice is going out into the void, right?
Yes, that's what was just in my head. It's like I feel like, hello, hello, can anyone hear me? Like, because especially solo episodes, you just feel like I'm talking to myself. Does this even
Right.
make sense? Who's listening? Please, somebody say
Yes.
something, right? It is. It can be a
Right.
very isolating and lonely place.
Isolating. That's the word I was looking for. So that's why we need each other. And you have a community. It's the Women's Podcaster Party. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So tell me
So
about it, how you started it.
well, first, I want to say community is everything. I have found that in business, in podcasting, I would not still be here today if I hadn't found amazing communities of other people, other podcasters. And I had a great community of this pair of podcasters that really, it was small, but they helped us and they were
Mhm.
accessible and they made it seem like doable, and
Right.
that's what helped me grow, but it also pushed me to help other people. So a little
Yes.
over a year ago, I decided that I love my communities I already have. Shout
Mhm.
out to Podfest. That is an
Oh,
amazing
I love
community to
podcasts.
be a part of, but
Yes.
it's big, right?
Yeah.
And it's all different kinds of podcasts. So I decided maybe we need a space just for women,
Yeah.
because as women in podcasting, we talk about different topics often than men do, but
Hmm.
we also talk about things differently than men do.
Right.
You know, we vibe differently as women talking to women versus women talking to men. So I wanted
Exactly.
to create a space for women to come and say the things maybe they don't want to say in a big Zoom meeting,
Hmm.
but also be able to learn from those of us that are doing it. So they're not having to start out without, learn from us, learn from our mistakes, and learn from what we have gained
Right.
through our journey. So I created the Women's Podcaster Party, one, to kind of make it fun,
Hmm.
right? Networking can get boring, but also to kind of create a network of women, podcasters, guest speakers, who can come together on a regular basis and network, find new connections, maybe find a new podcast to guest on or find a new guest, but also to learn. And so a part of that community is also I bring in a featured speaker every month,
Hmm.
typically a woman, that either is a podcaster or has her business relates to podcasting in some way.
Hmm.
And I just bring them in and let them tell their story and let people ask them questions about what they do.
Oh.
And, there were points I questioned, should I keep doing this? It's a lot of time and effort. And then I kind of felt a momentum kind of shift.
Hmm.
And so a year later, we're still here. I just recently had one of my parties, and it's just a great place for women to come and meet each other and connect and ask questions and get feedback from each other. So I'm really proud that it's still going,
Yeah.
and I hope that it continues to grow and grow into many new other opportunities.
I hope so too. Congratulations on a year of showing up and remaining consistent and being available. Like you said, accessibility is something that we need in podcasting. And there's so many what we feel like are barriers to entry. And so when we have access to people who are willing to share their knowledge and expertise, that makes it so much easier for us to keep doing the podcasting work, right? And so thank you
Yep.
for having the community and for just showing up and being consistent. Um,
Thank you. Yeah,
yeah,
it's work, right? It's
yeah,
work.
it is.
All
It
of it.
is. But it's worth it. And I
Yep.
just think you're helping so many people to remain true to their calling, to do their work and let their voice be heard. So you're helping them. And that's amazing. Now you have two shows, and I kind of want to hear about like what these two shows are, and then like what having two different episodes or two different podcasts has shown you about storytelling and connection.
Oh, that's a great question. So, I have definitely learned through my podcasting journey how important storytelling is. And, a part of it is our legacy, is what is our legacy we're leaving behind?
Right.
But it's also what I've realized is when you're trying to help someone, when you're trying to support someone, or you're even trying to educate someone, that, you know, just shoving a bunch of information and statistics at them, and I can say this as someone who taught statistics, is not going to do it. We retain that kind of information much, much less than we do if we're connecting to someone through their story, through their experience.
Right.
So for me, that started with the story of my pet. I got to talk about my own experiences, but then I started having a lot of people on the show who work in animal shelters, who volunteer, who rescue, who foster. And what I realized was the power of their stories, their experiences, is what's going to change people's mind about why you should adopt and not buy from a breeder, why you should foster, why you should do the things that we all need you to do to help animals in our world. And
Right.
so I kind of learned through listening, but also telling my own stories. And I
Hmm.
also realized how healing storytelling is.
Yes, for sure.
One big experience I had with my pet podcast was I thought I was an animal advocate, but I really know about this much of the reality of that world of animal welfare, rescue, whatever it is.
Hmm.
And so I've changed. I volunteered, I've fostered, I've even
Wow.
worked. But my first foster kitten unfortunately passed away in my arms. And it was very traumatic for me. And I am not an over emotional person, but I was a mess.
Mm.
And eventually I got on the mic and I talked about it. And I just talked through I had him for like 4 days and I just talked through the whole experience. So for me, that was healing because it's like, get it out of me
Yeah,
and like
yeah,
release it.
yeah.
But I also thought if someone's listening and they had a bad first experience fostering and they didn't ever want to do it again, I want to say, listen to me. I know it's hard. It was awful, but I got over it. And the day I finally took his carrier back to the shelter, they had just gotten in a litter of 2-week-old kittens with no mom.
Oh,
And shelters are legally not allowed to keep kittens that are not old enough to eat on their own. They would actually end up being euthanized if they can't find a foster. So it was like,
oh,
okay, little
I didn't
Binks,
know
you're
that.
telling me. I brought the litter of 6 home, and it was a full-time job.
Oh my goodness. All
But
six.
yeah, you bottle feed the first one. By the time you get to number 6, number 1's hungry again.
Oh my goodness. Wow.
So,
How long did this go on for? Like,
well, I had them for 6.5 weeks.
yeah.
Although not that, after a couple weeks they start eating on their own. But
Okay.
let me tell you, 6 kittens are messy.
I can imagine.
And it was a great experience, though. It was also very healing. And then I also wanted to share that story. Like, look, I went through a very hard thing and I thought, how could I ever do this again?
Yeah.
But then the timing and one of those kittens, this little baby behind me, Pumpkin, when I took them back to the shelter to be adopted, I adopted her, and she is our youngest cat, and she
Oh,
is a crazy calico who brings us joy and laughter every day.
wow.
And, it's just like when I say podcasting changed my life, I really mean it. I have probably a million stories I could tell, but I say that because I found a community, but I also found a place where there were more people like me, women
Right.
in their 40s who didn't have human kids, who had fur kids, who love their animals and want to help.
Yeah.
And so it really opened up my world in a lot of ways, but I also realized that me sharing my story could be helping someone out there that I don't know, but who really needs to hear it. And that kind of was the evolution from pets to my other podcast, which is all about women and women sharing their story and helping each other by saying, "Hey, I've been there, let me help you."
That's amazing. I love hearing that. I love how you came into podcasting, but also just like how you use it. You used it for to help others, but like you told your stories and it was cathartic for you. It was therapeutic. And then as you were going through your pain, you shared that with people. And so you made some really deep connections with people. Even those who have never told you feel that connection because of your
And
story.
it's such a weird feeling to be a podcaster. I've been at a few conferences where I'll be like, "Hi, I'm Julie," and someone will say, "Oh yeah, I know, I follow you," and it's like, it's a
Yeah,
weird thing, right?
it is.
Like
Yeah.
you and I follow each other, and it's like it's weird. It's like I know you, but I don't.
Right.
But then that also has taught me, like, I have no idea who's listening. Like, I was on a top chart for my pet podcast in Pakistan at one point, in
Wow.
India, in all these places that I'm like, I don't know who this is, but wow, like somebody
Exactly.
somewhere else is learning from what I'm saying, my guests are talking about, and that's a very powerful feeling.
It really is when I know one thing I love to do is look at the stats, but look at the countries that are listening in. And that's amazing to me that we can work as podcasters, we can make a worldwide impact, that people from
Yes.
all over the world are listening into what we have to say. And how else can that happen as quickly and as, just as quickly as with podcasting? It's just
Right.
so fast, right? You just get on a microphone and hit publish, and then it's on an RSS feed, and someone, like you said, in India is listening to you. It's amazing.
Right.
Yeah,
It is amazing.
yeah.
Can
Well,
be a little overwhelming sometimes too.
that's for sure. Because you don't know who's listening, but yet
Yeah.
you're making an impact on someone's life with your personal stories. So that said, I wanted to ask you about advocacy because I know that many women want to use podcasting to advocate and to use their voice to amplify their voice, but don't know where to begin. So I want your advice on first steps. I know you coach a lot of
Mhm.
women through this. So what would you say they should do first if they want to use their voice in this way?
Well, one thing I definitely say is do your research, and that
Mhm.
can mean a lot of different things. But if you are really passionate about a topic or an area, I know I have friends who have podcasts about sustainability, about being a widow, about, crafting, about true crime. I have someone I met by listening and reaching out to her. She has a true crime podcast about solving her father's murder that has been unsolved for 20 something years.
Wow.
So people come to podcasting for so many different reasons, but there's a connection. There's a reason we're passionate about that topic. So if
Mm-hmm.
there's something you're passionate about, someone listening out there, look at the podcasts that exist. Like search your topics, search your niche, look at categories. What are people doing? That's
Yeah.
a good way to see, like, oh, people are talking about this. My first client that I helped launch her own podcast, she wanted to have a podcast about dogs, soul dogs. She had a soul dog who changed her life, and she wanted to kind of share that and share other people's stories. But she met with a coach that told her that was a stupid idea and no one wanted to listen to a podcast
Oh
about dead
no.
dogs.
Oh
Like
my goodness. They just
she,
killed her
sh
dream.
Yes, and she found my podcast and listened. She was like, "Hey, she's kind of doing this. She's talking about pets that are here now. I talk about my own childhood pets." So she reached out and we talked, and she was like, "You get it." And I go, "I get it. You have to find the people that get it." So when I say research, it's also about seeing, like, what are people doing, but what aren't they doing? What stories aren't being told? Where's
Right.
the void that you can help fill and help someone
Absolutely.
like I helped her realize, no, you have a valid idea. Someone needs to hear this story too. Let's get it out there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There's someone for everyone. And
Mhm.
like you said, there are subjects that haven't maybe been explored, maybe touched, but maybe not explored. And
Right.
definitely not the way each individual has the ability to bring to the table, right? So there we have a
Right.
different take on things.
We
So
all have a unique perspective. And
exactly.
I also talk about research because people think especially women, oh, people are already doing that. No one needs to hear me. That we always
Right.
talk ourselves down.
Right.
But also, you have to realize, yes, there are millions of podcasts, but only a fraction of them are actually active.
Yeah.
So if you find a bunch on a topic you're talking about, look at the last episode. Was it this year? Was it 3 years ago? People pause, people fade,
Yeah.
people come back, and I take breaks on my pet podcast sometimes for months.
Hmm.
But so part of that research is realizing it doesn't matter if there's 1,000 other pet podcasts.
Yeah.
Mine is right for a certain person, and
That's
that's
right.
what I'm going to keep doing.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you said in the beginning, to know your why. If you know who you're doing this for, then everything else is just kind of irrelevant because you know who your people are, you know who you're talking to, who you want to reach. And so
Right.
there's room for everyone in podcasting. And then I just want to ask you too about some ideas that we may have that can hold us back, right? So maybe some myths that that we have about launching a show or being a guest on a show. So you can be a myth buster right now and
Yes, I
share some
love
of that
a
with
being a myth buster. So the first one I will say is the biggest myth is it has to cost a lot and has to have expensive equipment to start a podcast.
Oh, right.
No and no.
That's a
First
big
of all,
myth.
I have a Samsung QU2. It is like $60 on Amazon,
Mhm.
and many podcaster friends use it. I don't have a lot of fancy equipment. I've evolved through my process, but you don't have to have the most expensive thing. You also don't have to pay somebody a ton of money to start one.
That's
Like,
true.
I am here to tell you, you can do a podcast on a budget.
Yeah.
You can make it work. And that's also part of understanding what your time and resources are before you start. So you set
Right.
it up in a reasonable way. So that's definitely one of the biggest myths. One about guesting is that you have to have been a guest to be able to be on a show. No. Or you have to be a professional speaker to be interviewed as a guest. Those are
Right.
all no. I mean, I used to speak in my old career, but I hadn't spoken at all as a podcaster, and I just started guesting fun stuff. Like, my first one was about movies I love, and another one was about something else, or my
Yeah.
doctoral program journey. Whatever it is, just start,
Yeah.
and that will be your practice. So I
Yeah.
think those are some of the big myths, is that people think they have to have all the things and all the fancy stuff, and it has to
Yeah.
be this or that. There's ways to make a podcast in so many different ways. And another myth is you have to edit it and have great sound quality. No, that is why YouTube is popular. Live streaming,
Yes.
video, interruptions, all the things. It doesn't
Exactly.
matter. It's about the content.
So true. Oh, I love all of these tips because for one, I'm just sitting here looking at this blue Yeti that I have here. This was like maybe $60. I've been using this for 3 years, and before that, I used a microphone for 10 years. And so these are the tools I've had for the lifetime of podcasting. And then I just have my computer here. So I mean,
Right.
it doesn't take much, and there are so many free tools out there. So I love that you busted that myth, that there's no barrier to entry when it comes to equipment. There's a lot of free stuff out
Right.
there. And then going live. That's what my husband does with his podcast. He just goes live on LinkedIn, and that's the podcast. So
Right.
I just love it.
And
Yeah.
and that is also what I love about podcasts, is there's
Mhm.
so many ways you can do it. Like, say podcast, and that means something different to every person in the room, right? I
Right.
always say traditional podcasts are RSS feed, audio only, which is how I started, but I
Mhm.
eventually started putting the video on YouTube, and I want to expand and test out some live streaming, but that's up to me. No one says I have to do. You don't have to check all the boxes. It's
Right.
whatever you feel comfortable with. Some people feel comfortable with recording and being able to edit. Some people are like, I don't want to edit, I'm going live. Then I don't
Right.
have to worry about it. So,
Exactly. It's whatever feels right for you in the space.
yep.
And so everybody has a different comfort zone of how they want to show up online. Some people want super edits, and some people are just like, no, I don't want to deal with that, right? Just let me
Right.
show up with my content, or not even with content. I'll just show up and start talking and see what
Right.
happens.
And I have so many women say to me in conversation, like, well, don't I have to do video? Don't I have to do this? And it's like, no, there's no podcast police, guys. You get to decide what it looks like. And, for me, I love interviewing. Like that is my happy place. And part of it is because being educated in psychology as a college student, I was taught how to run focus groups, how to run interviews, to do it for other reasons. So
Hmm.
that is natural because those are skills I've had for decades. Sitting by myself with the mic, coming up with a topic off my head and talking to myself is hard for me because I want that interaction. So my podcasts have more interviews. That doesn't mean don't push myself to do solos, but that's where I spend more of my time because that's what I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
So part of it also is finding what you enjoy and what you like to do. I have a friend who had a podcast, never interviewed anyone. It was all her. It was her personal stories,
Hmm.
journal, and she was an amazing storyteller. And so she had that in her and she did it. And it was amazing. So it's also figuring out like, you don't have to do it if you don't enjoy it.
It's exactly, exactly. It's like, like you said, there's no police here. Nobody is going to get in trouble for doing podcasting a little bit differently. And if you come
Right.
up with another idea that works for you that you haven't heard of anyone else doing, try it and see. Maybe
Right.
it'll become a thing. And so I love that about podcasting. It's a wide open space. It's very grassroots. It's very whatever we want to evolve it into. And so
Hmm.
I just think it's a free area to explore, and everyone should try it out who's interested in like telling their story, and
Right.
if they want to connect it with their business somehow, just to see
Right.
how it works in tandem with the business or the organization or something like that. So I love that. Now, where can listeners find out more about what you do? Because like you said, you have community, and that's so needed. We don't want to be doing this on
Yes.
our own. So tell
No.
us about your community, about your coaching, and about any networking events you have.
So the best way to find me is my website, which is simply juliemartypearson.com. All of
Mhm.
my events, all of my networking, all the things are there at both of my podcasts. And, the one thing I really say is if you are interested in podcasting, you want to be a guest, you want to guest more, you maybe want to start a podcast, just come to one of my networking and learn, listen to other people. What are they doing? Why are they doing it that way? Because that's really a space for people to learn. But I've also just recently started a low cost membership on top of that. The networking will always be free and open to anyone, but the membership's going to give me space to do more group coaching, to do practice interviews. I get asked all the time,
Yeah,
I don't even know how to be interviewed. I need help. Okay,
yeah,
let's jump
yeah.
on and I'll interview you, right?
That's a big
Or
one. Yeah.
friends who need to learn how to be a good interviewer. Okay,
Mhm.
let's figure that out too. So
Mhm.
I've kind of created that Podcast Your Story community membership
Mhm.
as that next level of support, but keeping it at a low cost because I want people who are like me when I first started. I can't afford a lot, but
Yeah.
20 bucks a month or 30 bucks a month, okay, I can get some
And
support and
that's
maybe get
affordable.
more space to ask the questions I really want to ask.
I love that. I love that you're providing community and support and just collaboration amongst podcasters. So that is wonderful. I want to ask you if you have one more piece of advice for anyone listening today that is on the edge, maybe thinking about starting a podcast, not sure, but they've heard all 30 minutes of us talking about it's going to be okay, you can do this. But
Right.
what last thing would you say on today's show?
I would say that you don't know until you try.
Mm,
And so maybe try it and see what you think, if you like it, if you like the feel of it. But I also say don't expect immediate reactions.
yeah,
Like podcasting is a long game, folks.
yeah.
It is, you may not see the ripple effects for a few weeks, months, even years. I know people who've been podcasting for years and now they're really seeing the impact on their business. So I always say try it and see if you like it, but please have realistic expectations because a lot of people jump into podcasting thinking I'm going to make money, but that's not really what it's about. It really is about the community and the storytelling. So tap into that. And if you have friends who are podcasters, you have friends who are also thinking about it, just get on the mic and
Yeah.
try it and talk to each other and put it out there. Because one thing I do know, and this is really what I want to leave people with, everyone has a story to tell, and there is someone who needs to hear your story. And so I want people to realize that your story and experience matters, and podcasting is the fastest way to share that with the world. So if you're on the fence, please just try it. And if you have questions or need a little help, reach out to me. I'm happy to meet with you and talk through it with you.
That is awesome. Thank you so much for your encouragement today on the show. And I know that people listening who are thinking about starting that show feel inspired at this point and have a little boost, a little encouragement to get moving on it. So there's all kinds of help out here, and the podcasting community is very open. We're very friendly. So we're all willing to help. So I'm glad that you were on the show today, and I appreciate you. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.